All right, so we all think we know the story of Adam and Eve, right? The garden, the apple, the snake. It's one of the most famous stories ever told. But what if the key details we all take for granted have been, well, misunderstood? So let's just jump right in with a question that gets to the heart of it all. The serpent in the Garden of Eden. What if it wasn't a snake? I mean, not at all. What if the tempter was actually something way more captivating? Now, this whole perspective we're about to unpack comes from a specific book, The Lamb, the Cross, and the Water, by an author named Daniel N.B. Lamptey. So, just to be clear, for the next few minutes, we're stepping into his interpretation, just to see where this fascinating take on the story leads. Okay, so our journey begins exactly where the story does, in the Garden of Eden. But right away, Lamptey argues we need to completely rethink what the garden was for. He's saying, hey, this wasn't some kind of trap set up for failure. It was something else entirely. It was a genuine test of choice. And for this author, it really all boils down to one thing: free will. He argues the forbidden tree wasn't some mean cosmic prank. No, it had to be there. Think about it. How can you genuinely choose to show love or loyalty if there's no other option on the table? That tree, it's what made the choice real. So this whole idea of a real choice brings us straight to those two famous trees. And according to this book, they weren't just, trees. They were something way, way more profound. Yeah, think of them almost like competing information systems, like two living databases. Each tree represented a completely different way to live, a different source of knowledge. One pointed to a spiritual reality, and the other, a purely material one. Adam and Eve were literally standing at a crossroads between two entirely different worlds. And this is where the author really breaks down that choice for us. You had the tree of life on one side, right? That whole system pointed to God. It was about feeding the spirit based on love. He calls it the Word. Then you had the tree of knowledge. That one pointed to the self. It fed the flesh, was based on lust, and he calls that the world. Two completely opposite operating systems. And a quote from the book really drives home just how high the stakes were. It says, God placed access to both the heavenly and material realms in these two trees. So you see, this wasn't a choice about what to have for a snack. It was a choice about which reality humanity was going to plug into. All right, now we get to what is probably the most shocking idea in the entire book. We're talking about the true identity of the serpent. The author just breaks this down with some pretty simple logic. He asks, are we really talking about a literal snake here? I mean, has anyone ever seen a snake talk? And even if you did, wouldn't your first reaction be, terror? Not a casual conversation? These simple questions really make you rethink that classic image we all have in our heads. Which, of course, leads to the big question. If the tempter wasn't a snake, then who or what was it? And the book's answer is that the tempter was something way more subtle and honestly, way more dangerous. Not some scary reptile, but a handsome being, perfect in beauty. The bait wasn't fear, it was charm. So the author makes this really important distinction between the tempter's outward appearance and its inner character. On the outside, handsome, charming, totally captivating. But on the inside, its nature was serpentine. Subtle, crafty, sneaky, and dangerous. That perfect beauty, it was just a disguise. Okay, so if the tempter was this charming, beautiful being instead of a snake, how does that change the temptation itself? Well, according to the book, it shifts the whole battle. It's no longer happening in the garden. It's happening in the mind. And this is a really crucial point the author makes. The fall, the real spiritual break, didn't happen when Eve took a bite of the fruit. No, it happened before that. It happened the moment she bought the lie, the moment she started to desire what was being offered. She didn't just eat a fruit. She consumed an entire philosophy. And the engine behind that philosophy is what the author calls lust. And he's very specific here. It's not just sexual desire. It's any inordinate desire. That feeling of being hot after something that pulls you away from God's path and towards yourself. In fact, the author says the forbidden tree was basically the perfect package deal for what he calls the trinity of the devil. It was a three-part appeal. First, the lust of the flesh. The part that says, this will feel good. Second, the lust of the eyes. Wow, that looks good. And third, the pride of life, that deep desire to be your own God. And the author boils this whole conflict down into a really clever bit of wordplay. Just look at the words word and world. What's the only thing separating them? One letter. L. Lamptey says that L stands for lust. It's the engine that runs the world system, and it's the polar opposite of love, which is the foundation of the word. So there's your choice, right there in those two words. So, what does all this ancient history have to do with us today? Well, in this last section, the author brings the story right into the 21st century. The book's big conclusion is this: the Garden of Eden never really went away. It's not some fairy tale place from the past. It's a choice we all face every single day. We are constantly standing between those two information trees, the word and the world, and we have to decide which one we're going to get our information from, which one we're going to eat from. And that brings us to the author's ultimate piece of advice. He says you can't just get rid of the tree of temptation. It's always going to be there. Its fruit will always look enticing. The secret, he says, isn't to guard the tree, it's to guard your heart. Because the battle isn't out there, it's in here. That's where the choice is actually made. And so the book leaves us with a really powerful personal question. The choice is still yours. If those two trees are standing here right now in the garden of your life, which one are you eating from? Look, if this breakdown got you thinking and you want to dive deeper, the full argument is right there in the book. It's a seriously thought-provoking read, and I highly recommend checking it out. You can find it on Amazon.com.